turn the mic up. This is legacy emotion. From vision of victory, trailblazing the path. Mind sharp, words heavy, every bar got class. Iconic by nature, pioneer by design. History in the making every time she aligns. Doctorate dreams, but the roots run deep. Built from the grind, now the whole world speaks. Culture, purpose, power when she steps in the room. Drop gems so real, make the future zoom. Yeah.
This is iconic pioneers. Hear the story unfold, where the fearless lead and the truth gets told. Every voice legendary, every lesson precise. Often with wisdom, Dr. Tabatha Russell on the mic. Press play. Stay ready. The movement starts now.
Welcome, everyone, to the Iconic Pioneers podcast, the space where disruptors, trailblazers, and bold thinkers gather to rewrite the rules of success. I'm your host, Dr. Tabatha Russell, and on this show, we will go deep with those who aren't afraid to lead differently, build legacy, impact, and authority that echoes for generations. Today, I have the amazing opportunity to interview Mr. Marcus A. Canady. Can I just say that he is doing some things that is absolutely game-changing. I cannot wait to get into the interview. So welcome in, Mr. Marcus.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Tabatha. I am excited to talk to you and to engage with your audience.
Oh, I love it. So go ahead and share with everyone what it is that you do, sir.
Yes, so I am the CEO of the Canady Leadership Group. That is the company. But what do we do? What are we focused on? We are focused on developing and training leaders in the way that we think leadership should be done. One of the phrases that we like to say is we want to create leaders that we will want our kids to work for.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. So tell me, what does being an iconic leader mean to you personally?
What that means is a leader that has an absolute profound, long-lasting, positive impact on the people that they lead. Someone that you might think of that you stopped working for 10, 15 years ago, but you still remember them today. I remember one of my favorite leaders, one of the more iconic leaders that I have been fortunate enough to work for, a Todd Lutz. He was in the Coast Guard, and he was here in DC just maybe 2 months ago. And I stopped what I was doing. I cleared my schedule, and I made my way over just to sit down with him for 30 minutes, just to catch up, check in with him, see how he was doing, talk about some things that I was doing. I stopped working for Todd Lutz in 2008, but the impact that he had on me has been long lasting. So here it is, almost 20 years ago, and he still is that important to me that I made sure I was able to spend a little bit of time with him while he was in DC. Those are the type of leaders that I want to create. Those are the relationships that I want leaders to be able to create with the people that they're leading so that they can have that sort of impact on everyone.
I love it. I believe that having those type of relationships allows us, though, to really connect on a deeper level, right? It's one thing to work for a person and get a lot of good nuggets, but when you can connect with them and really continue to learn from them and continue to foster those relationships, it is definitely amazing. So tell us about a defining moment when you realized you weren't built to follow the crowd, because I know that you are military. You have a military background, so thank you so much for your service. But I also know that throughout the process, there's some defining things that help you to become the person that you are today. So share with us one of those moments.
So, in thinking about that question, it takes me back to a point in my career where I was working for a leader that I would say was probably a toxic leader. I remember this leader asking me to change some things about me that I felt was very near and dear to my heart. I was very focused on recruiting efforts, focused on mentoring, things that really filled my cup, right? I was focused on making sure everyone felt valued and seen at the job and really focus on uplifting people, right?
Mhm.
Well, this leader, he, for whatever reason, he wanted me to stop doing some of those things and only focused on what he felt were my job tasks, right? Now, mind you, when I asked him if he ever needed something from me and I didn't produce it, he couldn't give an answer. I asked him, was there ever a point where you needed me and I wasn't available? He didn't have an answer. But for some reason, the things that really fed my soul, the things that I truly felt were important and resonated with me, he wanted me to stop doing. And so I did that for a couple of weeks because he was my supervisor. He was in charge of my career. He was in a powerful position, but I wasn't myself. After about 2 weeks, I said to myself, this is not who I am authentically. And what I end up saying to myself is that if I cannot be my authentic self, if I cannot show up the way Marcus Canady wanted to show up and do the things that I felt was important, that I felt was right, then whatever happened to me in my career in this organization, it just wasn't the right place for me. And that I would end up finding another organization where I could end up being my true authentic self and flourish. So after about 2 weeks, I said to myself, no, I'm not going to diminish myself in order to make this leader feel bigger, right?
Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
going to dim my light to make sure that other people feel like they're being shined on. What I decided to do was I decided to just double down and do what I felt was the right thing to do, what was important to me, and continue to do the job because I want to make sure that that's clear. Doing the job is important, right?
Mhm.
So I made sure I was doing the job, but I also did the extra things that I felt was important. And fortunately enough, my organization, the Coast Guard, valued me doing the job as well as the extra things, and I continued to ascend into the organization. But that was a defining moment for me to live my true self, to walk in confidence, right? But to be clear in what I felt like was the right thing to do and continue to do it unapologetically. But it also showed me the impact that leaders could have. And so I wanted to create and train leaders that in that moment, when they see somebody that is passionate about something, that they have a gift, that they figure out a way to use that gift, right? Figure out a way to make people feel seen and authentic in how they want to show up and how the organization can benefit from it, right? And so that really was a defining moment for me that I hope I've been able to stay true to as I move forward in my career.
Oh, I love it. Well, first of all, congratulations on getting through that process, but then also doing what a lot of the young people say today is called stand on business, right? Meaning that you were very firm in knowing who you are and what you stand for. And a lot of times when it comes to that, depending upon the person, I've seen a lot of people diminish their light just to fit in, just to be a part of the crowd, just to be the yes person. However, it takes a special person to say, I'm not going to do that. Let me continue to do something different and figure out how I can stay true and authentic to myself. So thank you so much for sharing that. And how do you today balance, though, building wealth, influence, and impact without sacrificing that authenticity? Because you stood on that then, and of course you've had a process leading up to now. How does that still continue to reign true for you today?
Well, I would say that as you mentioned, the young people say standing on business.
Mhm.
I believe that's true. You have to stand on business, right? But you also have to make sure that your business is good, right? Standing on business doesn't really help you out if your business is not good. So for me, I really had to take a moment and think about what I was doing and was it really the right thing, right? And so once I made the decision that no, this is the right thing, standing on business was easy. But also, I still had to produce at the job, right? And so I had to understand that there are certain things that the organization and the job requires me to do, right? I do have a job description. I can't do what I want to do and just ignore what my job actually is. So you have to, one, make sure that your business is good, that you're standing on. You got to make sure you're standing on firm foundation, but you also have to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, am I doing the job? Am I passing the test? Is the organization asking me to be productive? And am I producing in the manner in which my job is paying me the money to do, right? And so all of those things are important. I had to do that analysis. I had to do some self-reflection. I also had to pray on it as well. I honestly think that if you are living out your purpose, if you are doing what God has for you, then it is going to be successful, right? So you have to also pray on it as well, right? Probably the first thing you should do as you start to do that analysis, right? But once again, I was fortunate enough to work through that period, but and still be successful, still be able to stay employed, still be able to make money, and still be able to ascend in the organization because I did what the organization was still asking me to do as far as the job, right? That was first. Then I was able to do the extra things that the larger organization actually did deem valuable. Sometimes that we have to understand that you might have one person that is trying to tell you that what you're doing is invaluable. You also have to take a look at, is that one person or is that the organization? In my situation, it was one person. And I'm fortunate enough, and I'm really thankful enough that I was able to see that that was one person's opinion. It wasn't the organization's opinion. When I realized that the organization did value my talent and what I was bringing to the organization, those promotions kept coming.
I love it. When you talked about seeking the Lord first, I believe what the word says, that is, he will lead us into all truth, lead and guide us into all truth, which allows us the opportunity, though, to have some discernment, right? And to understand the bigger picture, the bigger vision, and connect with that. And that in itself is massive from the standpoint of it allowing us to be able to connect with that inner goodness, right? That inner being and that leader that's within, and continue to be able to move forward. And as you said, to keep being promoted, right? Ascending. So what's a myth about leadership or success that you believe needs to be dismantled immediately? Because I know that you're doing some amazing things with helping other leaders. So let's dive into this just a little bit. Break that down for us.
Yeah. So a couple of leadership myths that I would like to dispel. Um, Leadership is difficult. Anyone that tells you leadership is easy, that leadership is comfortable, is not telling you the truth. Or they have a wrong understanding of what real leadership is. Real leadership is going to put you in some uncomfortable positions. Real leadership is going to cause you to make some tough decisions, right? If you are a person that wants to stay comfortable, then probably being in a leadership position is not for you. You might be an excellent manager, and there's a difference between leadership and management. Processes get managed, resources, budgets, task list, those things get managed. But people need to be led. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people in leadership positions that are only managing instead of leading. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are feeling overmanaged and underled. People in leadership positions need to be leading. And leading oftentimes puts you in uncomfortable positions. And it's oftentimes not easy, but it's critical and necessary. Another leadership myth that I think I would like to speak on is leadership training. Now, there are some people that say leadership can't be trained, it can't be taught. I don't agree with that. I think leadership can be trained and it can be taught. There are obviously going to be people that do it better than others. What we call natural born leaders are people that really have just been born into situations that sharpen their leadership skills very early on. But a person can learn how to be a leader. Even if you think that you do leadership well, you can do it better through training. Now, unfortunately, I think that a lot of our leadership training, seminars, and workshops are actually failing. When you think about your favorite leader, when I think about Todd Lutz, who I mentioned before, the impact that he had on me, and when I think about other leaders and supervisors that had a profound impact on me, I'll give you another example. Aaron Roth. He was a leader of mine that I still have a relationship with today. He asked me out for a mentoring conversation. He said, "Hey, let me take you to dinner." Right? And I said, "Okay, cool," because he's a senior person. He's about to pay, right? So of course I'm going to dinner and I want steak, right? And so we sat down at this dinner, and the first question he asked me, well, actually he didn't ask me a question. He just started the conversation and he said, "Marcus, you're about to have your first child. And I want to talk to you about how having your first child is going to change your life." This wasn't just a mentoring conversation for the job. This was a life mentoring conversation. That sort of action, that sort of investment in a person, I didn't hear about that in a leadership training. All the leadership courses that I've been through, they didn't teach me how to have that sort of impact. They didn't teach me that technique. And I'd be willing to bet you that if you talk to Aaron Rolfe, he would tell you that he didn't learn that in some training. He did that because it was just how he cared for people. But that's something that can be trained. There's nothing that's stopping us from telling that story and telling people these are the things that you can do to connect with your people and have immeasurable, profound impact on them. That is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the work that we're doing with the Canady Leadership Group, because those are the things that we're talking about. That is how we lead differently. That is how we train differently. We want to train leaders that simply do things differently.
I love it. I love it. I quite often like to say that when you're leading, if you're a good leader, you're concerned about the whole person, right? Not just business and not just inside the four walls of the office. It's like in order for a person to really come to work fully, having that space to be open and vulnerable, as well as the space to do their job, it allows them, though, to be able to bring 100% to work each and every day because they've learned how to have boundaries. They've learned how to have different perspectives based upon the job. And they've learned how to, invite the things that's going to be challenging and bring it along with them so that they can show up authentically and fully as well. So thank you so much for sharing that, because a lot of times people leave that out, right? They're not concerned about what goes on at home, right? Leave that at the door is what they say, and then come on in here. Well, is that possible in all situations? Everybody don't know how to do that, but they know how to show up. They know how to bring their attitude along with them as well. So it really does make a difference. But your success that you've had over the years, I'm sure that it has left some clues along the way. What are some of the daily habits or rituals that keep you operating at an iconic level?
Yeah. So for me, the leadership style that the Canady Leadership Group is front and center on is intrusive leadership. And it's very interesting that you mentioned whole person, right? So what is intrusive leadership? A lot of people don't know what intrusive leadership is, but we have provided a definition for it. And what intrusive leadership is that it is a leadership style that uses intentional actions to inspire, motivate, develop, and support people by caring for the whole person through a trusting relationship that addresses professional as well as personal interests, desires, and concerns. So when you think about what you just said, how important it is for leaders to realize that when they're talking to that market analyst, when they're talking to that nurse, when they're talking to that engineer, when they're talking to that IT specialist, they're also talking to a wife. They're talking to a father. They're talking to a whole person. And they do not want that person to feel like that the only part of them that they care about is them as an employee. We want to create leaders that understand that they need to make sure that their people are showing up to an emotionally safe and psychologically safe environment that they can bring their whole self to the job and be supported, right? Developed. I think about police officers. We understand that police officers, the reason why they always deserve our respect, right, is and we should be championing them is because they put their life on the line every single day. When they show up to the job, the expectation is that if a moment arises, that they will be willing to lay down their life for the safety of a citizen, for the safety of someone else. If we are leading police officers if I'm leading a police officer, when that police officer sacrifices their life, they're sacrificing their whole life, not just the part of them that's a police officer. They're sacrificing the part of them that is a mother, that is a part of them that is a husband, the part of them that is a son caring for an ailing parent, right? So if I want someone to be willing to sacrifice their whole self for the job, I need to be willing to lead that whole person. I can't always ask them to keep those important parts of themselves in the car when they show up to the job, right? I got to make sure that they can show up to the job authentically as a whole person. So you are absolutely spot on. That is a leadership style that we are front and center on. The Canady Leadership Group is the only group that is talking about intrusive leadership. And it is the way that I say leaders should be interacting with their people every single day at a foundational level. Now, it's not the only leadership style that leaders need to know, right? Multiple leadership styles out there. But what we say is that intrusive leaders are able to be more effective using other leadership styles when the time comes, because it is built upon the foundation of intrusive leadership. It is built on that foundation of trust, respect, and true, genuine care.
I love it. I am just in awe about the model that you have over there. I've had the opportunity over the years to be in management the majority of my life. Like I got into management at 17 years old and have been there ever since, before I even got into entrepreneurship. And at one point, I did call center work where I was the call center manager. And I was one of those that believed in a open door policy, which meant that, you know, from the agent that's on the phone to the supervisor, the team lead, whomsoever, they were always welcome to come in. And a lot of people didn't understand that. I would walk through the center and I would see manager after manager, director, VPs, and all of them got their doors closed. And they're in there and they're just, you know, their heads down and they're working. Well, I would walk the floor to go out and to talk with people, to understand what's going on. Who is this person that is showing up to work today? And how can I be a more effective leader by leading by example, first of all, that when we come to work, we show up fully, but also be personable. Take the time out to know those that labor among you, right? That we hear that quite often, but do we practice it? So it definitely does make a difference. So I also know that legacy is more than wealth. So what legacy are you intentionally creating for generations to come? I know the Canady, group is definitely doing some amazing things. What else do you have in there?
Well, we're focused on leadership training, but the legacy is when someone is led this way, when they're led in the manner where they truly feel seen and truly feel heard, when that really resonates with them, they end up leading that way. And so now other people are being led in that same manner. And so our legacy is really having a cascading effect where everybody everywhere understands that people deserve to be working for someone that is willing to take intentional actions to make sure that they feel valued and supported and developed, right? As a whole person, not just people that we might go golfing with or people that we go hunting with, but we actually take, as leaders, that we actually take intentional actions to make sure everyone that's working for us understands that they're valued and cared for, that nobody suffering in silence, right? What are some of the ways that we do that? Well, we research, right? But we don't research our experience, we research other people's experience. So I just finished reading a book called Big Asian Energy. Wonderful book that discusses how Asian Americans, the barriers that they face in the workplace. And the book was really designed to kind of tell Asian Americans things that they need to overcome, right? Well, I'm not an Asian American, but I want to be the best leader for everyone. So if I want to be the best leader for everyone, I need to be very intentional in learning how I might need to show up as a leader for everyone. So that means reading a book on what barriers, what challenges do Asian Americans face when entering the workforce, making sure that I'm not one of those barriers, right? And I'm also developing and supporting them in the manner in which they need. And I should be doing that for everyone, right? And so that's just the way that we are, once again, developing and training leaders, right? To lead in a way that starts to build a leadership legacy. People get led that way. They realize how impactful it is for them. And in turn, they want to have that impact on others. So they start to lead that way as well.
Yes, I love it. We quite often like to say that if we're not building and creating memorable moments, we'll soon be forgotten. And when you create legacy for generations to come, leadership is like at a top priority because it allows others to have an imprint or something that they can take from you that they now implement, and it becomes a cycle that they share with someone else. So it definitely does make a difference. Also here on the show, we talk about leadership, luxury, and legacy here. How do you personally define luxury as a leader?
Luxury as a leader. This might surprise you in the response, but I think a luxury in leadership, especially leaders that lead in an intrusive manner, is being afforded the opportunity to play a role in someone being here or not. As I mentioned before, a lot of people are suffering in silence. We want to develop and create leaders that they know their people well enough that they can pick up on who could be suffering in silence, who could be facing some challenges at home, and they're just going through the motions at the job. Intrusive leaders put themselves in position that they have an opportunity to be the difference. That when they ask, hey, how are you really doing? The luxury is getting an honest answer. When you've taken the time, been intentional, building that trusting relationship where that person knows that if they let you know that they're not doing okay, that you would stop everything that you're doing to make sure that they get what they need, that instead of you just sending them away to get fixed somewhere else, that you would actually walk with them, that you truly, genuinely care about their well-being. The luxury that you have is when you ask that question, you get an honest answer. You don't just get the, I'm fine, everything's okay. You get the honest answer and the opportunity to be there when someone really needs it.
I agree. I believe that it is an honor to just be a leader to begin with. But when you have other people that trust you enough to follow you and to do what it is that you ask them to do, it is amazing to me the transformation that happens not only just in them, but as you continue to grow as a leader. You undertake all these different things. I tell people, you'll be amazed at the things that I've had the honor and the privilege of doing as far as being a leader over the years. And I've learned that it's not about me, right? It's not about me sitting in the seat of leadership, but it's about the people that I serve and that I have the opportunity to work with and bring them along, right? Like my first goal as a leader is to find my replacement. And if I can find my replacement in someone, then I know that I am more than doing my job, because as a leader, you identify, like you were saying, those qualities, those skills, and the not so great things as well, right? But you get the opportunity to call them up out of some of that stuff and help them to navigate their next. So I absolutely love how you said, and you talk about the intrusive leader as well. So what's the boldest risk that you've taken in your career, and how did it reshape your trajectory?
The boldest risk that I took in my career is speaking truth to power when someone senior to me needed to be held accountable for their toxic leadership. Unfortunately, we have too many people that don't have the courage to speak truth to power and to really provide people that don't have a voice a champion when they need it. They end up wanting to save themselves. They end up wanting to make sure that their promotion is not going to be impacted. And so I made a decision very early on in my career that my next promotion was not worth someone having to face a problem alone. And so my boldest risk was championing people that needed a champion, that was actually worthy of being a champion, not just anybody that is in trouble, right? Someone that was actually worthy of a champion, being their voice, and being willing to go to someone senior to say, I don't care that you are upset at me or that you're being mad because I'm holding you accountable. What I care about is how you're treating this individual, right? And too many people, we all know, the studies show that most people leave jobs not because they don't care about the mission, not because they don't like the purpose of their job. It's because of toxic leadership. And too many people aren't being held accountable for their impact, their negative impact that they are having on people. As you just mentioned, the open door policy, right? Your door was open, but your door just wasn't open. You actually went out of your door and you engaged with people, your peers. Their doors were closed, right? How did the company hold you accountable or hold them accountable for what you or what they might not have been doing for their folks, for their people? Leaders, senior leaders, they need to hold their middle managers, those first line supervisors, accountable for how they're leading and the impact that they're having on people with their leadership style. In too many places, the senior individual is completely oblivious to the toxic leadership that is going at the mid-level and at the lower levels. Meanwhile, their employees are being impacted, and they're wondering why they have to continuously spend money to recruit, retrain people, handle workplace disputes, all of these other things, simply because they're not paying attention to how their leaders are leading.
Agreed. It is unbelievable sometimes to see the amount of stuff that just gets swept under the rug, that just get pushed into a closet and things like that. So it definitely takes companies like yours that's teaching leadership on a new level, like on really how to get back to the grassroots of how to build solid foundations with your people and those relationships. It really does make a difference, and it shines through in the workplace. I know for me, my team consistently was at the top of the leaderboards. They were really doing and performing at high levels based upon the metrics that the company set, right? We exceeded those because we operated at a higher level of excellence. And with that, companies need this, what you're teaching, what you're providing in your business every single day. So for those who are listening that feel called to lead but question their power, what's your message to them?
Lead anyway. Leadership is an action. It's not a position. If you want to have this sort of impact on people, if you want to mentor, if you want to develop, if you want to invest in others, just do it. You don't need to actually be in a position that now gives you the title of leader. You just need to do it because, as I mentioned before, there are a lot of people that have the title and all they're doing is managing. They're not leading, right? So if you're a person that you want to have this sort of impact on people, you want to make sure that everyone feels valued, that everyone feels heard, just start leading. And as you mentioned, you led this way and your team hit the metrics, right? Studies have always shown that positive employee satisfaction directly correlates to increased work performance, increased organizational loyalty, increased organizational buy-in, right, to the organization's objectives, and it increases the desirable retention metrics as well. So it actually makes good business sense to lead this way, to train your people to lead this way, to hold them accountable for leading this way. Your employees went above and beyond for you because they knew you would go above and beyond for them. For someone else, they're just going to do the bare minimum. I'm just going to do enough not to get fired. We don't want those sort of employees. We want those employees that if they think there's a better way of doing something, they feel comfortable sharing it, right? If something happens and they need to stay a little bit longer that day, they will be willing to. Sometimes you don't even need to ask them, hey, Dr. Russell, is there anything else I could do? Is there anything else you need from us? Because they end up start seeing their colleagues as family, and they want the family to be successful. That is the power of intrusive leadership. That is the power of leaders truly being engaged, truly building trusting, authentic relationships with their people, and making sure that everyone feels valued. Those are the results. Those are the impacts. And I'm just trying to spread it as far and wide as me and the rest of the Canady Leadership Group team can.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I can definitely hear the passion in your voice around leadership and just the intrusive techniques that you're teaching through the Canady Group. So thank you so much for sharing that and being here with us on today. How can people connect with you?
Yes, people can connect with us on LinkedIn at the Canady Leadership Group. Also, we have our website, CanadyLeadershipGroup.com. I will tell you that if you go to YouTube, and you just type in intrusive leadership, Canady Leadership Group, a number of podcasts and videos pop up. But I would love to engage with anybody that sees value in what we're saying. And once again, that wants their employees to be led by leaders that simply lead differently. I would love to work with you, engage with you, and help train leaders that we would want our kids to work for.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much once again for being here. We'll have to have you back again at some point to really see what else you're doing and how you're making a difference in the leadership space. And thank you all for tuning in to the Iconic Pioneers podcast, where we don't just build brands, we build blueprints for generations. Remember, icons aren't born, they're built by those bold enough to lead unapologetically. Until next time, keep leading, keep building, and keep breaking every limitation. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
This is Iconic Pioneers. Hear the story unfold, where the fearless lead and the truth gets told. Every voice legendary, every lesson precise. House filled with wisdom, Dr. Tabatha Russell on the mic. Press play. Stay ready. The movement starts now.